The clang of iron bars echoed through the small jail cell as Willow Fletcher pressed her trembling hand against her swollen belly, tears streaming down her face. She'd been in Sundown Creek's only cell for 3 days now, watching the late afternoon sun cast long shadows through the barred window as April 1876 bloomed outside in a world she could no longer reach. Her own family had thrown her here, declaring her shame too great to bear, an unmarried woman carrying the child of a man who'd abandoned her with promises of returning. "Got a visitor," Sheriff Thompson announced gruffly, not bothering to look at her directly. The shame of an unwed mother still carried weight, even to lawmen in Colorado territory. Willow raised her head, expecting perhaps her stone-faced father come to lecture her again, or worse, her uncle who'd insisted that she be locked away until arrangements could be made to send her to a convent far east. Instead, her reddened eyes met the steady gaze of a tall stranger whose dusty trail clothes and worn Stetson marked him clearly as one of the many cowboys passing through these parts. 5 minutes, Sheriff Thompson muttered, wandering back to his desk. The stranger approached the bars, removing his hat. His face was sun-weathered, but young, perhaps 26 or 27, with kind eyes that held none of the judgment she'd grown accustomed to. "Miss Fletcher?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she whispered, instinctively drawing back. Strange men had brought her nothing but heartache. "My name is August Adler. I own the Triple, a ranch about 20 miles west of here." He glanced back at the sheriff, then lowered his voice. "I heard what happened. The whole town's talking, but not many are offering help." Willow laughed bitterly. "No one is offering help, Mr. Adler. My family made sure of that." "I am," he said simply. She studied him more carefully now, his clean-shaven face, the way he stood straight and tall, meeting her eyes directly. There was something reliable in his demeanor that she hadn't seen in most men she'd known. "Why would you help a woman you've never met?" August shifted uncomfortably. "My sister found herself in similar circumstances 3 years back. Nobody helped her." His voice grew quieter. "She didn't survive the birth." Willow's hand pressed harder against her belly. At 21, with a child due in less than 2 months and abandoned by everyone she'd ever trusted, death seemed an increasingly likely prospect. "What kind of help could you possibly offer?" she asked. "I've paid your bail," he said, "and I have a proposition for you." Before she could respond, Sheriff Thompson returned, keys jangling. "Seems you're free to go, Miss Fletcher. Mr. Adler here has settled up with the town and your pa." "My father agreed to this?" Willow asked, stunned. $500 speaks mighty loud," the sheriff replied with a shrug. "Your kin won't be bothering you anymore." The cell door swung open with a creak. Willow hesitated, one hand on the iron bars, the other protectively over her child. August extended his hand. "You're safe forever, Miss Fletcher. You have my word." Willow had learned the hard way that a man's word often meant nothing. But as she looked into August's earnest face, something told her this time might be different. With nowhere else to turn, she placed her trembling hand in his. The late afternoon sun felt foreign on her skin after days in the dingy cell. Sheriff Thompson pushed her few belongings across the desk, the small carpet bag containing a change of clothes and the handkerchief her grandmother had embroidered years ago. Willow noticed her father hadn't sent any of her other possessions. It was as if she'd ceased to exist to him the moment she'd been locked away. "My wagon's just outside," August said gently. Stepping onto the dusty main street, Willow felt the stares of townsfolk boring into her. Sundown Creek had always been small, barely 500 souls, and news traveled faster than telegrams. Women pulled their children closer as she passed. Men averted their eyes, or, worse, let them linger too long on her swollen belly. "Ignore them," August murmured, helping her up onto the seat of a well-maintained wagon pulled by 2 strong bay horses. "Where are we going?" Willow finally asked as they cleared the town limits. "My ranch, if that's agreeable to you," August replied, his eyes on the road ahead. "I've a small cabin on the property where you can stay. It's private, comfortable enough." "And what do you expect in return?" Willow asked bluntly. Experience had taught her that men rarely offered help without expectations. August glanced at her, seemingly surprised by her directness. "Nothing improper, Miss Fletcher, I assure you." "Then what?" He took a deep breath. "My proposition is a practical one. I need a wife, and you need protection. The AAA is growing nearly 1,500 acres now, with a good herd. But a ranch needs a family to become a legacy. Willow stared at him. You're proposing marriage? To a woman carrying another man's child? A woman you've just met. I'm proposing a partnership, August clarified. I can give your child a name, a home, a future without shame. You can give my ranch a woman's touch, help it become a real home. He paused. I'm not looking for romance, Miss Fletcher. Just practicality. Willow turned away, watching the landscape roll by as they traveled westward. The late spring had painted the foothills in waves of green and gold. In another life, she might have found it beautiful. What happened to her father? August asked after several minutes of silence. Willow's hands tightened in her lap. Thomas Blackford, a cattle buyer passing through last summer. He promised to return by Christmas with a ring. Her voice hardened. Christmas came and went. Then January, February. By March, when I could no longer hide my condition, my father discovered the truth. I'm sorry, August said simply. Don't be. I was foolish to believe him. Trust isn't foolishness, August replied. Though I reckon it feels that way when it's broken. They traveled in silence as the sun began its descent behind the mountains. Finally, Willow spoke again. I'll accept your offer, Mr. Adler, but I have conditions. Name them. This will be a marriage in name only. I won't share your bed. August nodded. Understood. And my child will know the truth when they're old enough that you're not their natural father, but chose to be their father nonetheless. Fair enough. If I wish to leave someday, you won't stop me. At this, August frowned slightly. I'd ask for at least a year. Give the arrangement a proper chance. Willow considered this. 1 year, then. Is that all? He asked. For now. August guided the horses around a bend in the road, revealing a sweeping vista of rolling grassland. In the distance, nestled against a backdrop of pine-covered hills, sat a collection of buildings that comprised the AAA ranch. It's not much compared to some, August said, a note of pride in his voice despite his modest words. But it's mine, free and clear. Main house, bunkhouse for the hands, barn, stables, smokehouse, and the cabin I mentioned. Willow had to admit it was impressive for a man so young. How long have you had it? Built it up over the last 5 years. Started with just 100 acres and 30 head of cattle. Got lucky with some investments. Worked harder than most. He glanced at her. My father always said a man needs 3 things to truly succeed out here: land, livestock, and family. I've managed 2 of the 3 so far. They pulled up to the main house as the first stars appeared in the darkening sky. It was a solid 2-story structure built of timber and stone, with a broad porch wrapping around the front. Lamplight glowed from the windows, and smoke curled from the chimney. Mrs. Perkins keeps house for me, August explained as he helped Willow down. She lives in town but stays over when I'm away. An older woman appeared at the door, wiping her hands on her apron. Her weathered face registered surprise at the sight of Willow. Mr. Adler, I wasn't expecting you back with company. Mrs. Perkins, this is Miss Fletcher. She'll be staying in the north cabin tonight. August's tone was polite but firm. Please prepare it for her and bring over some supper. The housekeeper's eyes lingered on Willow's condition, but she nodded briskly. Right away, sir. The cabin proved to be a cozy 1-room structure about 100 yards from the main house. It was simple but clean, with a comfortable bed, a small table with 2 chairs, a pot-bellied stove, and a rocking chair by the window. Mrs. Perkins bustled about, lighting lamps and stoking the fire, while casting curious glances at Willow. Town's been talking about the Fletcher girl getting locked up, Mrs. Perkins finally said when August stepped outside to retrieve Willow's bag. That would be you, I take it? Willow lifted her chin. Yes. And now Mr. Adler's brought you here. It wasn't quite a question. He's offered me a position, Willow said carefully. Mrs. Perkins raised an eyebrow. Has he now? What kind of position would that be for a woman in your condition? Before Willow could respond, August returned. That will be all for tonight, Mrs. Perkins. I'd appreciate it if you'd return tomorrow to help Miss Fletcher settle in. When the housekeeper had gone, August handed Willow a plate of stew and freshly baked bread. I apologize for Mrs. Perkins. She means well, but her tongue runs ahead of her manners sometimes. She won't be the last to question my presence here, Willow said, suddenly exhausted. The events of the day from prisoner to potential bride in the span of hours had drained her completely. We'll be married before week's end, August stated matter-of-factly. That should quiet most of the talk. Willow's hand trembled slightly as she set down her spoon. So soon? Unless you need more time? She laughed without humor. Time for what? To consider my many other options? August leaned forward, his expression serious. Miss Fletcher, I want to be clear. This offer comes with no expectations beyond what we've discussed. I'm not looking to take advantage of your situation. Why then? The truth, Mr. Adler. Why would you bind yourself to me and another man's child? August was quiet for a long moment. When my sister found herself expecting, the man responsible vanished. Our parents cast her out. I was working cattle drives then, saving for my own spread. By the time I returned and found her. He swallowed hard. No one should face what she faced, alone and afraid. He stood, moving toward the door. Rest now. Tomorrow, we can discuss the details further, if you're still agreeable. Mr. Adler. Willow called as he reached for the latch. Thank you. He nodded once before stepping out into the night. Alone, Willow settled into the rocking chair, one hand absently stroking her belly as the child within stirred. Through the window, she could see the lights of the main house, where this stranger, her future husband, now moved about. A man who'd offered her safety when her own blood had locked her away. What do you think, little one? She whispered. Shall we trust him? The baby kicked in response, and Willow chose to take it as a sign of agreement. Morning brought a flurry of activity to the AAA. From her cabin window, Willow watched cowboys saddling horses, moving cattle in the distant pastures, and carrying supplies between buildings. August's ranch was clearly a working enterprise, not merely a claim on paper like so many others. A knock at the door revealed Mrs. Perkins, arms laden with clothing. Mr. Adler asked me to bring these. They belonged to his sister. Her tone had softened considerably since the previous evening. He's waiting at the main house when you're ready. Breakfast is prepared. The dresses were simple but well made, and blessedly designed to accommodate an expectant mother. Willow chose a blue calico, grateful to change out of the clothes she'd worn for days in that cell. The main house was impressive inside, larger than it appeared from the exterior, with solid furniture and unexpectedly refined touches like curtains at the windows and framed landscapes on the walls. August stood when she entered the dining room, pulling out a chair for her. You look rested, he observed. I hope the cabin was comfortable. Very, thank you. Willow accepted a cup of coffee from Mrs. Perkins. Your ranch is quite impressive, Mr. Adler. August, please. If we're to be married, formality seems unnecessary. Willow nodded slowly. August, then. And you should call me Willow. I've sent word to Pastor Miller in town. He can perform the ceremony tomorrow, if that suits you. So soon. But what purpose would delay serve? That's acceptable. I've also taken the liberty of having this drawn up. August slid a document across the table. It outlines everything we discussed, the terms of our arrangement, your rights to property should anything happen to me, provisions for your child's future. Willow stared at the paper, surprised by his thoroughness. You had this prepared before you even knew I would accept. I like to be prepared, he said simply. Read it carefully. If there's anything you want to change, just say so. Willow scanned the document, amazed at its generosity. Should August die, she would inherit half the ranch outright. Her child would be legally recognized as his heir. And true to his word, there was a clause guaranteeing her freedom to leave after 1 year, with a generous settlement to ensure she wouldn't depart destitute. This is more than fair, she admitted. It's practical, August replied. A partnership needs clear terms. After breakfast, August offered to show her the ranch. They walked the property slowly, accommodating her condition, as he pointed out various features: the spring-fed creek that never ran dry, the sheltered valley where he wintered the cattle, the small orchard he'd planted 2 years prior that was just beginning to bear fruit. You've accomplished a great deal in 5 years, Willow observed. I had a clear vision, August replied. That helps. And now that vision includes a wife and child? August paused, considering her question. I always intended to start a family eventually. The circumstances are unexpected, but the goal remains the same. They reached a small rise overlooking the entire spread. In the distance, cowboys worked with the cattle, tiny figures moving across the vast landscape. How many men do you employ? Willow asked. 7 full-time, more during roundup and branding. August pointed to the bunkhouse. Good men, all of them. They know about our arrangement. Willow tensed. You told them? Not the details, but that I'm bringing home a bride who's expecting. I won't have them disrespecting you through ignorance. And how did they respond? August's mouth quirked in a half-smile. They're cowboys, not preachers. Most have complicated stories of their own. He turned to face her directly. No one here will judge you, Willow. That's a promise. Something in his steady gaze made Willow believe him. For the first time since discovering her pregnancy, she felt a small flicker of hope. They married the following afternoon with minimal ceremony. Pastor Miller, a kind-faced man with white whiskers, traveled from town to perform the service in August's parlor. Mrs. Perkins served as witness, along with August's foreman, a weathered man named Hank who awkwardly presented Willow with a small wooden cradle the ranch hands had hastily constructed. Not fancy, Hank apologized, but sturdy, made from good oak. Willow brushed her fingers across the smooth wood, unexpectedly moved by the gesture. It's perfect. Thank you. That evening, after a small celebration dinner during which August's men politely welcomed her with shy nods and respectful congratulations, August escorted Willow not to the cabin, but to the main house. I thought we agreed, she began nervously. We did, he assured her quickly. And I stand by that. But as my wife, your place is in the main house, not the cabin. I've prepared the east bedroom for you. Mine is at the opposite end of the hall. Willow's new room was spacious and comfortable, with a large bed, a chest of drawers, and a small writing desk beneath a window that caught the morning sun. Fresh wildflowers stood in a jar on the nightstand. Mrs. Perkins gathered those. August explained, seeing her notice them. She's warming to the idea of you, I think. And you? Willow asked suddenly. Are you warming to the idea of me, or already regretting your impulsive charity? August considered her question seriously. I don't make impulsive decisions, Willow. And I don't consider this charity. It's a partnership, as we agreed. A partnership, she repeated softly. Between strangers. For now, he acknowledged. But we needn't remain strangers. That night, alone in her new bed, Willow listened to the unfamiliar sounds of the ranch, distant cattle lowing, the occasional whinny of horses, the creak of the house settling. Somewhere down the hall, August slept her husband in name, a stranger in truth. What kind of life had she agreed to? What would become of her child in this arrangement of convenience? The baby kicked vigorously, as if sensing her uncertainty. I know, she whispered, rubbing her belly. It's better than the alternative. Far better. The weeks that followed established a routine of sorts. Willow gradually assumed management of the household, relieving Mrs. Perkins of many duties. August spent his days working the ranch, returning for meals during which they engaged in increasingly comfortable conversation. They weren't friends exactly, but a tentative rapport developed between them. May turned to June, bringing summer heat and advancing Willow's pregnancy to its final stages. She found unexpected pleasure in making the ranch house truly a home, arranging flowers from the meadows, baking bread in the kitchen, mending curtains and linens that had been neglected by bachelor care. One evening, she discovered August in his study, poring over a stack of books on childcare and delivery. You're studying, she observed from the doorway. He looked up, slightly embarrassed. Trying to. The nearest doctor is in Carson City, 20 miles away. If the baby comes suddenly. You want to be prepared, Willow finished for him, touched by his foresight. It's what I do, he said simply. Willow entered the room, settling into a chair across from him. Tell me something about yourself, August. Something I don't know. He considered this. I taught myself to read. My father couldn't, nor my mother. But I wanted more than they had. That explains the books. Willow gestured to the well-stocked shelves lining the walls. Your turn, August said. Tell me something I don't know about you. Willow thought for a moment. I always wanted to paint. Landscapes like those. She nodded toward the framed pictures on his wall. Why didn't you? My father thought it impractical. A waste of good materials. August closed his book. There's a supply run to Carson City next week. I'll have Hank pick up some paints and canvases. You don't have to do that. I know. His eyes met hers. I want to. Something shifted between them in that moment, a small, but significant change in the current that had been carrying them along as strangers sharing a home. July arrived with unexpected violence, a summer storm that swept across the territory, flooding creeks and threatening livestock. For 3 days, August and his men worked tirelessly to move cattle to higher ground and repair wind damage to the outbuildings. Willow watched from the porch as August returned on the third evening, soaked to the skin and exhausted. Without thinking, she met him with a towel and hot coffee. "You'll catch your death," she scolded gently, helping him remove his sodden coat. "Can't afford to," he replied with a tired smile. "Too much to do. The ranch." "That," he agreed, "and other responsibilities." His eyes dropped to her belly, now so large she could barely see her feet. The doctor from Carson City had visited the previous week, predicting the birth would come within the fortnight. "You should rest," Willow urged, surprising herself with the concern in her voice. August caught her hand as she turned to go. "Thank you," he said simply, "for caring." His fingers were rough with calluses, but warm despite the rain. Willow found herself reluctant to pull away. "It's what partners do," she said softly. That night, lying awake listening to the storm rage outside, Willow acknowledged what she'd been avoiding for weeks. She was developing feelings for August's genuine affection that went beyond gratitude or practical partnership. He had been unfailingly kind, respectful of her boundaries, and attentive to her needs. More than that, she'd observed his character through his dealings with his men, his neighbors, even strangers passing through. August Adler was a good man, perhaps the first truly good man she'd ever known. The baby arrived 3 days later, amid the lingering humidity of the passing storm. August sent for the doctor, but the birth progressed too quickly for his arrival. It was Mrs. Perkins who delivered the child, a healthy baby girl with a shock of dark hair and powerful lungs that announced her arrival to the entire ranch. August paced the hallway throughout, rushing in at Mrs. Perkins' call to find Willow exhausted but radiant, cradling a tiny bundle. "A daughter," Willow whispered as he approached cautiously. "Would you like to hold her?" August looked terrified at the prospect, but extended his arms with determination. Mrs. Perkins showed him how to support the baby's head as she placed the newborn in his embrace. The moment the child settled against his chest, August's expression transformed. Wonder, protectiveness, and something like love washed across his features as he gazed down at the tiny face. "She's perfect," he breathed. "I thought we might name her Aurora," Willow suggested. "It means dawn." Aurora Adler. August tested the name. A new beginning. Later, after mother and child had rested and the doctor had finally arrived to confirm both were healthy, August returned to Willow's room with a small package. "A gift," he explained, placing it beside her on the bed. "For Aurora, and for you." Inside was a silver locket on a delicate chain. When opened, it revealed a tiny space for a portrait. "It was my mother's," August explained. "The only thing of value she ever owned. I thought perhaps, when Aurora is older, you might want a keepsake for her." Willow's eyes filled with tears. "August, I can't accept this. It should go to your own child." "Aurora is my child," he said firmly. "In every way that matters." Their eyes met, and Willow saw the truth of his words reflected there. Whatever their unusual beginning, August had already embraced her daughter completely. "Thank you," she whispered, reaching for his hand. The summer passed in a blur of sleepless nights and joyful discoveries as Aurora grew stronger each day. August proved to be a devoted father, rushing home from ranch work to spend time with the baby, crafting a rocking horse for her future use, reading aloud from his books while she slept in his arms. Willow observed the transformation in him and in herself. The practical partnership they had agreed to was evolving into something neither had anticipated. She caught him watching her sometimes with an expression that made her heart beat faster, only to look away when she noticed. For his part, August maintained his promise scrupulously, never encroaching on her privacy, always treating her with respect rather than presumption. But Willow found herself increasingly wishing he would. In early September, as summer began to yield to fall, visitors arrived at the AAA neighboring ranchers gathering for a seasonal cattle drive. Willow, now recovered from childbirth and settling comfortably into motherhood, prepared a grand dinner for the assembled men. It was the first time she had truly played hostess as Mrs. Adler. "You've done well for yourself, August," one of the older ranchers commented over after-dinner cigars on the porch. "Fine land, healthy herd, beautiful wife and child. You're living the dream, son." Willow, Overhearing from the doorway where she stood with Aurora in her arms, felt a flush of pleasure at being included in August's accomplishments. Later, after the guests had departed and Aurora was sleeping soundly in her cradle, Willow found August in his study, reviewing cattle tallies for the upcoming drive. "That went well," she observed, bringing him a cup of coffee. They seemed impressed with the ranch. "With you? More like," August replied with a smile. "Can't say I blame them." Willow settled into the chair across from him. "Our anniversary is approaching." August looked up sharply. "Our wedding anniversary isn't until next spring." "Not that anniversary," Willow clarified. "The 1-year mark of our arrangement. When I'm free to leave, if I choose." August set down his pencil, his expression carefully controlled. "Are you planning to exercise that option? Do you want me to?" "No," he said without hesitation. "But I'll honor our agreement if that's what you want." Willow took a deep breath. "When I agreed to marry you, I was desperate. Alone, pregnant, abandoned by everyone I trusted. You offered me safety when I needed it most, and I'll always be grateful." "But," August prompted, his voice tight, "but gratitude isn't a foundation for a lifetime." Willow met his eyes directly. "Neither is a practical arrangement between strangers." August's shoulders slumped slightly. "I understand." "No, I don't think you do," Willow continued, rising from her chair to move around the desk. "I don't want to be your partner in name only anymore, August. These past months, watching you with Aurora, seeing the man you truly are. I want more." August stood slowly, hope dawning in his eyes. "What are you saying, Willow?" "I'm saying I want a real marriage." She stepped closer. "I'm saying I've fallen in love with you." For a moment, August didn't move, as if afraid any sudden motion might shatter the moment. Then, with infinite gentleness, he reached for her, drawing her into his arms. "I've loved you since the first week," he confessed, his voice rough with emotion. "But I was determined to keep my word, to never pressure you." "You never did," Willow assured him, lifting her face to his. "You gave me the freedom to choose, and I choose you. I choose us, you, me, and Aurora. A real family." When their lips finally met, it was like coming home to a place she'd never been before, unfamiliar, yet perfectly right. August's arms tightened around her, and Willow knew with absolute certainty that this was where she belonged. 10 years later, the AAA ranch had expanded to nearly 3,000 acres. The main house had grown too, with additional rooms for the children who followed Aurora, 2 boys and another girl, all bearing the Adler name, and all adored equally by their father. Aurora, now a spirited 10-year-old with her mother's determination and her father's sense of justice, knew the truth of her birth. August had insisted on honesty, as Willow had requested in their original agreement. But knowing hadn't diminished the bond between father and daughter. If anything, it had strengthened it, built on choice rather than obligation. On the 10th anniversary of their wedding, August surprised Willow with a special gift: a new painting studio built onto the east side of the house, with windows perfectly positioned to capture the landscape she had grown to love. "For the artist I married," he explained, leading her into the sunlit space, "who saw beauty even when surrounded by darkness." Willow turned in his arms, studying the face that had become as familiar to her as her own. The years had added a few lines around his eyes, a touch of silver at his temples, but his gaze still held the same steadfast reliability that had given her hope in that jail cell a decade ago. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked softly. "Taking such a risk on a desperate pregnant woman you'd never met?" August smiled, drawing her closer. "Best risk I ever took," he replied, his voice rich with certainty. "I promised you safety forever, but you gave me something far greater." "What's that?" "Everything that matters," he said simply, before lowering his lips to hers. Outside, the AAA ranch stretched toward the horizon, a testament to what could be built from the unlikeliest of beginnings: a pregnant bride locked in a cell, a cowboy with an unexpected proposal, and the love that had transformed a practical arrangement into a lifetime of happiness.